Mahalo and welcome to a different type of review. This week I am starting Maebashi, which is this will be the first time I'm doing a 12 episode review rather than my annual review for Precure, and I've been looking forward to this anime for ever since it got announced. Like at first I was like, what even is this thing? It looks like it's doing a lot. It's got witches. It's got idols. It's got a flower shop. It's doing a lot, but what even is it? And honestly, I'm so happy to say it's everything and it's more, and I'm already really in love with this show. And boy, does it hit the ground running. So without further ado, let's get into it. This immediately starts with a bang. We meet our main character, Yuina, who's already in the process of sort of selling a flower, running this flower shop, kind of. It's very confusing and it's meant to be. To this random, non-colorful haired girl named Eiko. And without wasting any time, she immediately goes into her idol outfit and is prepared to perform for this girl. Like, it just full speed ahead. We are not stopping. No moments for breath, no moments for explanation. We're just diving right into this. I was like, okay, it feels a little bit magical. We've got flowers. We have idols. Bring it. And then we've got aggression. We got aggression. We immediately also have the rest of the cast shown, which was something that I was curious about it, because this show was advertised as a 5-cast girl group of magical idol witches who run a flower shop. I was not sure if it was going to be Sailor Moon-esque in that we just sort of roll out each member of the group over the course of the 12-episode run. But no, we're meeting them immediately. In fact, we get a very warm and super pleasant and not at all intense introduction to Anzu, who already has established herself of having beef with Yuina. And that leads us to rewind and figure out how we got here. Now, the pace doesn't necessarily slow. It stays incredibly energetic and we go beat by beat, but it slows down enough that I don't feel like I'm listening to an audiobook on like 5 times speed and trying to catch the words at an inhuman rate. We see that Yuina is a student, given her uniform. We see that it's springtime. She lives out in the countryside of a city that we later learn is named Maebashi, which explains the title of the show. We also come to the very depressing reality that she's a fast fashion girly. Like, I saw this and I was like, no! No, she is making a mistake. That's what's happening right now. Shein in my magical girl anime experience? Is there no solace I can have in my fiction? No escapism? Sometimes you need your protagonist to suck in some department because she has to improve by the end of the show. But we very quickly learn that she is a fast fashion girly. And then she also has an obsession with cameras. I didn't expect to learn so much about her character so quickly, but given the pace, I'm starting to pick up at, like, they're trying to establish as much as they can about these characters in a way that doesn't feel completely unnatural. It just feels quick. And on that same boot of being very quick, we have our mascot introduction. Obviously, Yuina is not privy to all the magical stuff that this show is encasing, so we had to figure out how she was going to get introduced to it. So we get her little froggy friend who has broken into her house. And she, in a very comedic way, uncharacteristically just salutes back when he says hi, instead of being freaked out that it's a random talking stuffed toy frog thing that's in her bedroom. But she does very hilariously snap a shot of him. I laughed a little too hard when this happened, and he's like, yo, don't take pictures. Like, the amount of times that she takes pictures in kind of a series where there's supposed to be like, we're a secret magic group thing that does stuff like, we do stuff that's not super normal in this world. And she's like, I'll take a picture of every second of it. All of it. I will record it in my little disposable camera because heaven forbid we have anything long term. Everything is very short term with the purchases this girl is making. Nonetheless, he immediately says, you're a good pick. Let's go to my magical portal door to another dimension. And she's like, okay. She's like, all right, why not? Woo. And as I had mentioned before, we immediately meet the rest of the cast. Waste no time seeing that there are other characters who exist in here. And this is where I think the series really starts to be a sell to me. Because we already have a very nice spread for the 5 girls. Like, if there is anything that I think series have trouble with, it is the amount of cast that they have and how relevant that cast ends up being and how developed and how distinct they end up being. For example, I'm going to mention it a lot, and I'm sorry if I'm going to be annoying about this, but I'm going to mention Love Live a lot. Love Live is one series where I do think they do a good job giving the characters distinct personalities, but I think 9 is a crowd. I think 9 is way too many characters, especially for how little episodes they get a season. I love that we have 5, and then I also love which character is what and how they handle it, because I think the spread of like personality tropes between the 5 of them is wonderful. We also learn one other fact about our girl. Her family seems to own some kind of like pastry shop, and she also invented like the manju donut, which, you know, I immediately like her a little bit more because my girl is got donut on the brain, and that's very relatable. But when it comes down to the breakdown of these characters and why I find this show already exceptionally appealing, is that we have the characters, first of all, Yuina, who is kind of our Genki protagonist. But I like that she's not the most energetic. We have Choco, who is the sunshiniest of sunshine girls. Like, Yuina, by comparison, has a lot lower energy, and she also has a lot more self-awareness to herself. She's kind of like does that Genki dismissive thing when she talks about her negative qualities, but she's aware they're there. Choco is the picturesque Genki character and normally the protagonist. So I find it interesting that we have a sunshine character who's part of the group but is not the main lead. Also, Choco is decidedly the dumb one, which is interesting too, because that's again usually the main character's thing, is being the dumb one. We also have Mai, the blue one, who is very interesting against Kyoko, the green one, because Mai, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, is our realist, logical, but also cynical character of the group. She's mostly negative. It also very much fits their color palette, being the blue, cool-toned character. She kind of like is a little bit negative with everything she says, but all of it is grounded in logic and realism, and she's not overly energetic. She just kind of states facts the way it is, and is a little bit blunt. Kyoko, on the other hand, while also being probably the calmest member of the group, is also somebody who's very logical, but she doesn't have that same level of cynicism that Mai does, by contrast. And it's also interesting, too, as these kind of, like, cooler toned, cooler, chill characters amongst the bunch, that they pair these two up together. They do most every shot in this entire episode. The two of them are always standing next to each other and then like having a little bit of banter with each other, while Choco and Yuina tend to be kind of separated from them, which I find very interesting, that they're kind of pairing the people with similar personalities together rather than having like a yin-yang thing that they normally like to do in these types of shows. And while we're getting to know these 4, which they quickly, very, very quickly, through their very few lines of dialogue, show off their personalities, I can immediately pick up on who is who. And I love that, because normally when we have a cast this big, this quickly, I'm like, I don't remember anybody. I couldn't tell you who's who. But for just getting this fast intro of the 4, they establish themselves really well, especially given how fast the pace is going. In the meantime, our frog dude brings up the fact that we have no idea what's going on. We just walked into just like white abstract land and we don't know what's up with that. And so he offers to explain it, and there's this whole bit where he's like, I'll do it theatrically, and really goes in on that whole theatric thing. In a very like divine god way, he tries to explain things before immediately Yuina is like, this is too much, man. The volume in the movie theater is far too loud. I don't know what's happening. Kyoko ends up interceding and explains, in a very somewhat oversimplified way, that the 5 of them have been chosen as witch trainees, and that as long as they garner enough points, they can be promoted into full-time witches. Part of the restriction of trying to pursue witchhood, though, is that they'll only be able to use their magic right now in this abstract world that they exist in. But if they reach full witchhood, they will be able to use magic anywhere. And given how magic ends up being utilized by the frog dude, there's a strong chance that like magic in this world is incredibly OP. So I could see I could see why they might want to be witches. And while we end up naming our frog boy, we get our last introductory character, Anzu, who I think is so perfect for being a purple. Because purple being the combination between like red and blue, she embodies those colors very well. She has kind of the negativity and sharpness of blue, but she runs around and screams and complains a bunch with the passion of a red. And I just love the color coding. Like I feel like the color coding is very smart and really helps elevate the characters that they're assigned to in the show. And we see that this is our very sassy Ojo character, which is another thing I want to point out too, is that for a long time now, we've moved away from having these kind of sassy, very ornery characters in anime in general. We've moved to having softer characters and the conflict between the characters just not being as intense as it used to be back in the day. Which I don't hate that we moved away from that for a while, because I think the way it was handled back in the day, characters who were mean were just mean for the sake of being mean, or who were like rude were just sake for being the sake of rude. And we'll get more onto Anzu and why she behaves the way she does, and why I don't find her as irritating as I normally do for a character with this type of trope. Nonetheless, they explain that they have been trying to set up this shop for witches for a while now, but they didn't have enough energy with the 4 of them before. But with the addition of Yuina, now they have 5 people who could potentially have enough magical power to open up this shop, which is going to be their sort of goalpost right now for becoming witches. If they accomplish enough tasks while hosting this flower shop, they will rack up enough points to be real witches. And so the flower shop is born. It's also interestingly enough explained that this space that they're in that was just before a white abstract universe could have potentially been anything. They could have had any sort of like business that they wanted to be this obstacle that they needed to overcome in order to become witches. But the only reason why it became a flower shop is because Yuina is the only one who had a vision. And even that, as it's explained by Yuina, it wasn't very strong. It was just kind of how she was vibing. She's like, when I was a kid, I kind of like thought the idea of a flower shop was cool. And that goes to show you that the other 4 were just like, they had nothing. Dude, they didn't have any aspirations. They had no idea what to do. Yuina, like, poor Yuina got thrust into the position of a leader here just because everybody else just wasn't leader enough. Like, the bar seems like it was very low, but nonetheless, this upsets Anzu, who gets, like, this is what I like about Anzu. She keeps getting incredibly angry at Yuina, but it's not from a place of nowhere. Like, again, older mean characters or ornery characters, especially like prideful or overconfident characters, would be ornery for no reason. It's usually just like they have a lot of pride and they're just rude because of it, and I hated that. But Anzu has somewhere where she's coming from. Not that I completely agree with her, but she explains that she was the first person that Ketope, the frog, found and offered her witchhood. And so she thought because she was like, the first, she'd be, kind of number one. She also passionately wants to be a witch, which is something that they haven't really addressed much in this series. But it seems like everybody else in the group has some desire to be a witch. And Yuina was just like, hey, I got brought here. I barely even know what the benefit of being a witch. I don't know what the appeal of being a witch is. I just know y'all be doing that. Y'all are just doing the witch thing, and I'm just kind of here. So it makes sense that Anzu is somebody who wants it more and isn't given it. Like, I don't blame Anzu for being really upset in regards to this, because she does want it more. Like, she wants it in the first place at all. And this is what sets Anzu apart from other characters that I've seen in other series with this type of personality, because it does suck from her position. Even if it's not completely justified, it sucks from her perspective how things are turning out. She's somebody who clearly is like very passionately wants to be a witch, probably the most so far out of the group until we hear all their sad tea and backstories of why they want to be witches. I feel like that's what's gonna come. But she sounds like the one who wanted it the most. She ended up being the first one on it. And then you have this girl who does not care, who's getting everything handed to her on a silver platter. I can see why Anzu feels this way and why she has this kind of animosity towards Yuina immediately off the bat. They also just have those two type of personalities that don't get along very well. But at the same time, there's also a lot of entitlement coming from Anzu too, which only matters because in this series, there's a classism thing heavily implied here that they kind of clarify at the very end of the episode that Anzu looks the part of the rich girl, and then Yuina is somebody who looks like she's more just middle class. And Anzu is prepared to let her know that. So, like, the whole classism thing is where you lose me, Anzu. But other than that, I do think it sucks to be in her position. Other series have established this really well and have done a great job with it. Like, this is kind of low-key the same setup for Mahotsukai Precure. And I really like Liko, and I really like her position and her insecurities, and how she ultimately gets over them and then bonds with her pink girl. So I'm hoping that sooner than later, this whole conflict between them gets addressed, but I know it's going to be over the course of the... like, it's not going to immediately go away, and they're going to be besties. But I feel like it should get sorted out sooner than later for tolerance sake. Anyways, we are now brought up to speed on what their first task is, and exactly what the tasks they need to be and what exactly these tasks that they need to complete are. It's explained that their main goal and main tasks as these witch trainees is to grant wishes, and that the shop is just a front for them to grant these wishes. So for it being a flower shop is just kind of a ends to a means, more so than being a central point. So it already kind of deals with the fact that there's a lot of themes, and that the florist thing is just like a little fun aesthetic thing that they're throwing in there, and not so much a focal point compared to the, like, witch and idol part of the show. Those two things are far more important. We get presented with our first challenge, which is Eiko, who also got a point out here, and something that I wanted to mention for this whole episode and why it also has been drawing me in. It's so pretty, but not only is this show just unbelievably pretty, but every shot is really well thought out. As somebody who watches a lot of these, like, longer term magical girl shows and whatnot, scenes are usually just drawn to fill whatever need is there. If the character's in a classroom, it's two girls in a classroom, and the lighting is just, like, basic. If there's any, like, extra lighting at all. The fact that we see an image like this, and you see how intense the shadows are, you see how distinct the highlights are, you see the glow. This scene is not just two girls in a classroom who are talking to each other. This is a very intentional and mood-driven moment. And they do that with the whole of the show. The lighting is so intentional throughout this entire episode, especially for the second half. And as someone who has obviously been watching my longer term shows, both You and Idol Precure and Princess Session Orchestra, those two shows don't do that. But to be fair, and in defense of those shows, this is a 12 episode show. Those are 50 episode shows. You are going to put more effort in 12 singular episodes than you are when you have to spread your efforts across 50 episodes. So I think if this show was looking uglier than those two shows, then they'd be doing something wrong. They'd be doing a lot wrong if this show looked significantly worse than those two. Or even at the same level. It needed to look better because it's a 12 episode run. It's also a Bandai Namco anime. I didn't realize that. So they got budget. They've got budget for the show. But Eiko is going to be the first girl whose quote-unquote wish we need to grant. And she has a pretty interesting conflict attached to her character. We are immediately hit with, like, a trolley situation, where she goes to a very prestigious school and she's incredibly smart. But she has two career paths that are her current options. One is just to go into a nursing program. The other is to go down the path of trying to become a doctor. Her family wants her to go into nursing, but she kind of wants to go into being a doctor. And this is the conundrum she's facing that's causing her a lot of anxiety about which path she needs to choose, which leads her to be the perfect candidate for granting a wish. And she finds this magical doorway to the Maebashi witch's florist and comes across our team. This basically leads into what was showcased at the beginning of the episode, where Yuina immediately tries to fulfill her job of being like, oh my god, here's a flower, by the way, I heard you need a wish. I have to grant this wish if I want to become a witch, so what's the wish? Like, let's get on it, like, let's make some magic. And tries to speedrun this first challenge. I do want to put in another thing, another detail that I really, really like about this. Yuina is supplied a blue rose from Kerope to give to Eiko. And blue rose is such a fantastic choice. Like, listen, I'm not somebody who knows a lot about flower language, but I do know something about reality, which is blue roses aren't real. Or more specifically, they are not a naturally occurring thing. There's no such thing as a blue rose in the wild. There have been lab-grown roses that are a mixture of breeds to try to create blue roses, but for the most part, they're not real. They're this unattainable thing. To some, and typically in literature, that goes one of two ways. Blue roses either represent being very artificial and being fake. A lot of series will have a character like doused in blue roses to kind of imply that they're like not real or they're the imposter. But the other half of the way a blue rose is utilized, as you might know from another magical girl series, being yes, Precure 5 Go-Go, a blue rose also represents a miracle. It represents something that wouldn't ever be expected to happen, but has occurred nonetheless. Which, if you know the character Milky Rose, you can kind of see why that iconography is attached to that. And specifically for this scene here, the blue rose is such a fantastic choice because Eiko is dealing with what seems to be an impossible situation. And as this whole ordeal starts to continue, and as we dive deeper into this situation and how they're going to grant the wish, the blue rose is a perfect selection. Like, I love the details in the show. After we have the whole debacle that happened at the top of the episode, we learn that Kedopi can freeze time, which, again, the magic level in here is looking a little ridiculous if we have the ability to freeze time. But he literally teleports them away, freezes time, and he's like, all right, let's talk this out. Let's game plan what we're going to do before we go back in here. And honestly, I did not expect to love this debate so passionately, because this showcases every character and the traits that they've been given so perfectly by giving us this trolley scenario situation. We have Mai start off by immediately subverting expectations and saying we should go with the nursing path because it's better long term. If we're going to grant a wish, we want her to grant her a wish of stability. Going down nursing is what her parents want to do, and more specifically, people don't want her to do the doctor path for a multitude of reasonable reasons. One, it costs more to be a doctor. There's also the issue of sexism that makes it incredibly hard to pursue the path of being a doctor. The workload and studying and everything you need to do to pursue being a doctor is significantly harder than being a nurse. So choosing the nursing path would be a long-term blessing on not only her, but the people around her. Which Kyoko doesn't fight her very strongly, but she's like, yeah, but that's just like the realistic path. Why wouldn't we choose the more magical and miraculous path of pursuing being a doctor? Which Choco comes in with the exact thing you would expect a Genki protagonist to say, which is like, she wants to be a doctor. That's the thing she wants. It may be harder, but like, that would be the miracle. That's the magical path. That's the like correct answer, is it not? I mean, isn't the most magical thing to do to pursue your dream? And then Anzu obviously coming in again with being more of the negative character, counters back with she's somebody who already is in a very prestigious school. She's going to be fine. There's no sense in just going through all these hardships when she's already a leg up in the world. And all of them add something to this conversation and debate that makes so much sense for each of their archetypes, and with the same level of energy you'd get with each of those characters and their archetypes. So that's why I was very curious what Yuina's answer was going to be. Because normally, again, being the leader character, you think she would just go similarly to Choco, which is that her dream is to be a doctor. So we would just do what we need to do to basically have her be the doctor. But that's not what Yuina does. And this is where Yuina kind of established herself for me personally on being kind of the perfect leader, because she basically flips everything on its head. She first of all establishes, are we even asking this question correctly? Are we really trying to decide her future for her? Is that what the wish we're trying to grant even is? And that's what I love. She sits there and says, we're not trying to choose the path for her. The wish that we're trying to grant is how can we help her make that decision, not make the decision for her. And I love that. She says the best thing they can do and the best miracle that we can grant is giving her the courage to decide what she wants to do. Because the biggest issue that Eiko has right now is her lack of confidence, which all things considered, that is a miracle. That is definitely a difficult thing to grant. But with this resolve, they all ultimately come in agreement. And then we move into the musical segment of this, which this is where we just kind of shoehorn in that they're idols. This is how they're quote unquote encouraging her, but there's magic, so you know she's being thoroughly encouraged. And also, it's the best thing that they can really do now that they're technically speaking low tier witches. I'm sure whatever like actual fantastical magic you could use at the high witch level they don't have. They barely could set up shop at the beginning of it. So this is like the perfect way to be like, we can do this for her when we're this weak. But this, oh my god, I love the dance sequence to bits. I love that 2.5D has come so far from where it used to be. And also, I just love this umbrella. I love this little umbrella microphone. I don't think they'll ever be able to, like, pull this off in reality because there's a lot of complexity to it, but I'd buy it, dude. I love the umbrella microphone. And honestly, this sequence is so insanely pretty. I don't think, in my personal opinion, I'm very judgy when it comes to 3D, because I work in 3D, but I feel like technology has not reached a point, and I think creativity has not reached a point where it looks absolutely perfect, but this looks very pretty. The whole of this sequence is just absolutely gorgeous. The lighting is handled very well. The set is super cool. I love that she starts off in this, like, train, and there's, like, this level of uncertainty and a little bit of ominous stuff going on with the fish. And then it moves to her, like, encircling as the audience to the girls all singing and dancing and being encouraging. I also like that this is another pet peeve I have with Love Live. Love Live was absolutely horrendous with trading off who is center. Like, I think any idol show pisses me off when, like, only the main character is the center 90% of the time, and once in a blue moon we'll let somebody else. They constantly are switching off who's center, and I love that. Give them all the chance to be the center. We don't need to have one person be the mainest character. Like, I like how much Yuina, like, is the main character, but doesn't feel like she's like, and I'm the main character. She's so tolerable. I love it. I love her significantly for that. And overall, the 3D is just absolutely gorgeous. And the song's really good. The other thing I wanted to talk about was music. I'm watching 3 shows this season that all have music, and honestly, I'm pretty picky about the music I like. I like the insert song here. I love the opening that's at the end. That's going to be the opening song. I love them so much. The music's really, like, I'm immediately captivated by the music. The dancing's great. The music has ensnared me. I was worried that it wasn't going to be super good. I don't think it's quite to Love Live level, but it is memorable. Like, that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of anime suck, and I will end up talking about this in a different video. But I do think some of these idol series, like magical idol series and just idol series in general, I think some of them really suffer from having incredibly unmemorable music. I think this one's doing good at being memorable. I don't think it's top tier. I don't quite think it's like a Love Live Mermaid Melody level of I'm gonna remember these songs, but I like them. The only question I have, because this is going to be a 12-episode run series, and we get such a fun little stage and music event here, are the stages going to be different every episode, or every time they sing? Or are we just gonna come back to this stage, and then, like, it's gonna be a repetitive number, and it's gonna feel very Utena to me, in regards of how many times I have to see this? We'll find out next episode, but for now, I kind of hope it's different, because there's only 12 episodes, but also I know it's very expensive to keep making these stages over and over again. But wherever we are at the end of this is gorgeous. Like, this final scene here, with them, like, in this spacey wonderland place, and we're just, like, soaking in the atmosphere here, and it's very emotional. I'm like, it's so pretty. My only beef with the art in this show so far is it's not consistent. Comparing it to You and Idol Precure and Princess Session Orchestra, both of those series are very airtight with their aesthetics. They're very, very consistent with it. Maebashi Witches is kind of all over the place, but I feel like that's intentional. And, you know, I'm gonna let it slide because if every scene is different, at least it's pretty. And back to speaking about pretty, even when, like, Aiko returns to reality and, like, now has the courage to make the decision of which we probably won't see, it's so beautiful here. This golden hour scene is just insanely pretty. Like, it's, every screenshot's just so pretty. To circle back to the point of the rose, them being able to figure out how to deal with this very trolley-esque situation, I like that in its own way this has been a miracle. This has been creating a result where it was thought to be impossible. And I like that. I like it. It's full circle and I really enjoy it. And I love how much thought is put into this show. Like, every joke to every piece of symbolism, to the color assignments. All of it is very well thought out. All of it feels like it was incredibly intentional compared to other shows where we just kind of have to slap some stuff together. I feel like so much thought was put into this. And then we have the interesting revelation that once they've done this whole like magic bit, they're all drained specifically because that whole dance sequence and everything required magic. Everything that they did was like born of their magic. And then obviously Yuna being Yuna, like, is like, I'm not tired. And everybody else is. And I'm interested to see how all that plays out. There's a lot of seeds being sown in this series to have a couple of reveals. Keto not only is just like our mascot, but he's got a zipper on the back of him. There's some kind of thing going on there. And then figuring out what exactly these girls want out of being witches and like all of the backstory on that has yet to be revealed, but I'm incredibly interested to see what any of that is. Overall, this has been an absolute roller coaster ride of an episode. I mean, we were going lightning fast through it, but I feel like the information was very intentional. I feel like the script for this was airtight. I don't think there was a lot of superfluous things that occurred in this episode, which is somebody who's very like, I'm way more leaning towards series that have plot and purpose than I am for like series that have a lot of dead air or just like nonsensical jokes and whatnot. I'm very happy with this. And I'm excited to see more. So I will see you guys next week to continue the review. Bye-bye!